And she had to be tough because we didn't have that little chirp chirp back in the day when our parents took us shopping, you know.
Now you can blow your, you can have an alarm thing and it goes off.
It happens. You have to sit there and retrace your steps. Like, okay, I came through this door. I did this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh yeah.
And there's something to be said for that too, believe me.
Paraphernalia, liquid products containing nicotine vapors.
As we prepare to start our meeting this evening, if you would please silence your devices at this time. And also for the council members, just want to remind you that it's difficult to hear if you don't have your microphone on as we record and live stream the meeting. So if you would please turn your mics on when you get ready to speak. Yeah, no, he's right here, yeah. We're waiting for Mike, right? We can start, he'll be here in just a minute. I think he went to look for Grady, didn't he?
Grady's here.
I know, he come in the back door. Let me,
What they have tonight?
Did you lose him? I sent him a text.
Will Duff, that's his name. Will Duff. Will Duff.
Yeah, yeah.
I knew I'd get it.
Grady? Great.
Brady? Yes.
Stephanie, if you want to do invitation or Grady?
Me.
No. You'll do it. No, I know when we get ready.
You just say it either one. I don't mind.
Okay.
You know how it is.
Go for it. Hook her on.
We had a lot of practice, huh? We had a lot of practice in more Baptist churches, huh? You remember BTU?
Stephanie, do you want to do it? Would you mind doing it?
I don't mind doing
Okay, I'll do it. I'll let you.
Oh, I bet that was interesting.
Hey, did you see Mike? Did you see Mike? All right, we're gonna get started. He'll be here. Yeah, he'll be here. Okay. All right, the mayor will call to order the regular city council meeting for 6 p.m. Tuesday, May the 9th of 2023, City Council Chambers, 201 East Nash Street, Terrell, Texas. We have with us this evening District 2, Grady Simpson, District 3, Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem, District 4, Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, and District 5, Andrea Reese. Also, we have city staff and our city attorney with us this evening. We do have a quorum, so we'll continue with our meeting. If you would please rise for invocation, remain standing for the pledges, and if you would, Councilwoman Stephanie Holmes Thomas, lead us in prayer.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity, Lord, to meet in this setting to represent our community. We ask that you would make sure that we stay humble, that we do your work in serving the people of this community, Lord. We ask that we take ourselves out of it and ensure that we make the best decisions for the city. We pray for the first responders. We pray for all the other leaders of the nation. And most of all, we thank you, Lord, for our freedom to be able to participate in a forum such as this. In your Son, Jesus' name, we pray and we thank you. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. All right, our next item on the agenda is mayor and council community recognition and events. It's before, I think I have yours. Before we recognize our fire department, I just want to take a moment and say that we are going to be having that the Taco Festival was successful for the city. We had 2,000 to 3,000 participants throughout the day. Also, we're going to be having a softball game this Thursday at Breezy Hill Park at 6 p.m. That will be between the City of Terrell and the State Hospital. Now, at this time, I would like for Chief to brief us on our recognitions for this evening.
Mayor and Council, I come for you tonight to recognize our firefighters from C Shift on the run that they made on March the 23rd, 2023. But to get started, we have a short little video that was made by one of the parents. I think y'all would be interested in seeing.
Okay. Dustin. Mr. Connor, would you please come forward?
Hey, good to see you. I would screw that up. We're going to hope for the best here, folks.
In just a minute, we're going to. Are we gonna be able to do that, you think? That's- There we go. Good job, Dustin. Push play, chief.
Where's that at?
You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. And they say You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Even when I can't see it, you're working. Even when I can't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working.
That's wonderful.
I appreciate the Pentors providing that for us. On March 23rd, 2023, at 6:54 p.m., Terrell Fire Department units were notified by dispatch of a possible drowning call that involved 2 male children. At the time of this notification from dispatch, Engine 611 and Truck 621 were already on separate medical calls, which meant we had no availability or no available units to send. However, upon notification from dispatch, Captain Brandon Hamilton on Truck 621 was able to immediately clear the call they were on, located on Bradshaw Street, and checking route to this call located on Rockwall Court. Also in response to the notification, Captain Chris Spears on Engine 611, knowing his unit was closer to this call, made the decision to split his crew of 4 and had driver engineer Joey Bush and firefighter paramedic David Kirkendall respond while he and his remaining firefighter paramedic Brian Sherwood remained on scene to continue providing patient care until it could be transferred to Care Flight, who hadn't arrived yet. Engine 611 split crew was the first to arrive at the reported drowning call at 6:56 p.m., which was only 2 minutes and 25 seconds from the first notification of the call. Upon their arrival, both driver engineer Bush and firefighter paramedic Kirkendall were waved into the backyard where they found a conscious and crying 3-year-old male laying on the ground on his side, coughing up water with what appeared to be his mother doing back blows to assist in evacuating the water from his lungs. Next to them was another child, a 3.5-year-old, who was gray in color, not breathing. So firefighter paramedic Kirkendall, encouraged the mother of the 3-year-old to continue assisting with removing the water from her child and immediately began assessing the unconscious 3.5-year-old. Assessment revealed no pulse, so firefighter paramedic immediately began CPR and the resuscitation efforts. Truck 621 arrived on the scene at 6:58 p.m., which is just 2 minutes after Engine 611 and 4 minutes from the initial call, and moved to the backyard to assist Engine 611. Firefighter paramedic Logan Moore took over patient care for the 3-year-old, while firefighter paramedic Jeremy Holly and firefighter paramedic David Kirkendall, Holly assisted him with a 3.5-year-old unresponsive child. After 2 minutes of CPR on the 3.5-year-old, Kirkendall reassessed his patient and found that he had regained a pulse but was not breathing on his own. Paramedic Kirkendall intubated the child to secure his airway and to provide ventilations for the child. Both paramedics, Kirkendall and Holly, worked to clear the child's lungs of water in the hopes of restoring the child's ability to breathe on his own. Captain Hamilton requested an ETA on a transport ambulance and was informed it was 20 to 25 minutes out. He then requested a helicopter transport ETA and was given 20 to 25 minutes as well. At this point, Battalion 621 arrived on the scene, and he had with him Engine 611's Captain Chris Spears and firefighter paramedic Sherwood, who had remained on the call on Newton Street to tend to that patient. Hearing the ETAs for both the ground and the air ambulance, it was decided in the best interest of both children not to wait, but instead to transport both in the battalion chief's vehicle to Forney Baylor ER to receive definitive care. Battalion Chief Hargrave agreed, and both children with 3 paramedics were driven to Baylor ER in Forney. Paramedics continued to treat and monitor both patients during transport. While en route to Baylor, Captain Hamilton instructed dispatch to notify the air ambulance and divert them to Baylor's ER in Forney. Within only 8 minutes, both children were at the ER in Forney. The 3.5-year-old child, whom paramedics had to breathe for up to this point, began to show some improvement and was attempting to breathe on his own. The 3-year-old child was showing signs of improvement as well as they reached the ER. Both patients were carried in the ER where additional medical treatment was provided. The helicopter arrived soon after their arrival and airlifted the 3.5-year-old to Children's Hospital in Dallas. The 3-year-old was also transferred to Children's Hospital utilizing ground transport. On March the 29th, 2023, we received an update that both children were doing fine and amazingly had been released from the hospital. The 3-year-old only spent a couple of days in the hospital, and the 3.5-year-old, who fire crews resuscitated and was placed on a ventilator for a few days, was also released from the hospital in less than a week. No long-term deficiencies have been identified for either child. Both children and their parents are here today with us. At this time, I'd like for Max and Jacob and their parents to come up with the firefighter, as well as Kylie and Victoria Sumner and Gabriel Reyes. The successful outcome experienced by both these children were made possible by a series of decisions and actions made prior to and during this incident. The elimination of any single decision and/or action made during this incident, I am confident that we have had a devastating effect on the outcome that we are here today to recognize. Prior to this incident ever occurring, decisions and actions such as the City Council's support of TFD's move from a BLS, which is Basic Life Support First Responder Organization, to an ALS, Advanced Life Support First Responder Organization, has significantly impacted the outcome of patients since this move. Purchasing of advanced medical equipment to be carried on all apparatus, increases made in personnel training that is above what is recommended, and the ongoing organizational and council support provided to TFD's members has dramatically raised the bar of the standard of care that once was provided. Successful outcomes like the one we're here today to recognizing continue to become more frequent and more expected than ever before. From the very beginning of this incident, actions taken by those family members involved set the stage for a positive outcome. The actions of Alexandria Cervantes, the mother of 3-year-old Jacob Reyes, discovered the children in the pool and without hesitation entered the water to pull both children to safety. Her son Jacob was conscious and floating on top of the water, but Max Pintar, the 3.5-year-old, was laying at the bottom of the pool in the deepest end. Alexandria, for reasons she cannot explain, that struggles to understand, went to Max first and retrieved him from the bottom of the pool. Alexandria's other son, Gabriel Reyes, assisted his mother in getting both children out of the pool and to safety. Alex's actions, which he's had a difficult time processing, were the instinctive actions of a mother who subconsciously recognized which child was in the gravest danger at that specific time and circumstance. If this were not to have happened in the order in which it did, all other actions may not have had an influence on the final outcome of these two children. Other actions taken by family members that were also crucial to the children's successful outcome were that of Kylie Sumners and Victoria. Kylie, who was inside the house, heard the screams coming from the backyard and immediately initiated a 911 call as she headed outside. Once outside, she quickly handed the phone over to Victoria so that she could assist Jacob, who was coughing up water. Victoria remained calm and provided the 911 dispatcher with the information needed to get the correct help headed their way. The action of these family members provided a window of opportunity for emergency responders to have an influence on the outcome for these children. The quick and decisive actions of the officers of both Truck 621 and Engine 611 to ensure our response was timely, efficient, and effective played a vital role in the ultimate outcome, as did the professionalism of all of our first responding members who assessed each patient, knew what was needed to be done, and possessed the skills, knowledge, and ability required to do what was needed. Lastly, the decision of the Battalion Chief Lane Hardgrave, who exercised his authority to make a decision in the best interest of everyone involved, did so without hesitation and are concerned with how his decision would be viewed in the aftermath of this incident. For that, I'd like to recognize the crew of both Engine 611, which was Captain Chris Spears, driver engineer Joey Bush, firefighter paramedic David Kirkendall, and firefighter paramedic Brian Sherwood, the crew of Truck 621, Captain Brandon Hamilton, firefighter paramedic Jeremy Holly, firefighter paramedic Logan Moore, and then also the family Alexandria, Gabriel, Kylie, Victoria, and then Jacob and Max. Now we're ready.
For me to say that I'm proud of you and the council's proud of you is an understatement. We want to thank you for your judgment throughout this process, the quick actions, the efficiency with which you handled the emergency, is beyond words for us. But thank you, job well done, Chief, good job in training. I do have a couple of presentations to the little ones. We have from Ham's Peach Orchard, one free ice cream. And then also, we are celebrating our sesquicentennial this year. And these are the first coins that I've given out to the children. So there you go, that's for you. And then to the adults that were there and your quick actions. I know it was a difficult time for you as you process the emotions and everything. Our prayers are with you. We're so thankful that your kids are doing well. But who am I? Who was it that was?
She pulled them out.
Okay. Thank you. Who else?
Carly did see.
And then we also had. Gabriel, you did. Again, guys, thank you so much. We're so proud of the job that you do on a day-to-day basis. So thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd also like to add that I get to be lucky and represent both Children's Health. That's my 8 to 5 job at Children's Health. So it warmed my heart to see that Children's Medical Center, Children's Health, was the place that helped your babies get back to where they're at today. And it makes me even more prouder to be able to represent not only Children's Health, but the city of Terrell. And I wholesomely agree with our Chief LaCroix's comments on having the council and speaking for myself as a council member, supporting with budget and dollars to make sure that we move our firefighters from the basic life support to advanced life support, which means you have more tools, more trainings on the medical side to have the best possible outcome when it comes to health emergencies for not only the children, but the adults that are in our community and surrounding, because you also get to provide that mutual aid to the surrounding communities. So very proud of our staff and proud to represent, and so glad that we had the better outcome for our kiddos.
Makes you sleep well knowing they're out there, doesn't it? Good job. Good job, gentlemen, all of you. Good job.
Hey, did you have any recognition? No? Yeah. Hey, you know what? That's emotional, the video.
Hey, Mayor. Mayor, have a recognition as Nurses Week.
Okay. All right, we'll continue with our meeting, and everybody's eyes dried, and you know, if you have kids or grandkids, it was real emotional to see that. I'm glad that they shared that with us, and again, it just speaks to what we do here on the council and supporting our fire department, and I hope that continues in the future. We do have some more recognitions, though. Councilwoman, do you have some?
Yes, I didn't want to take away from that important moment. It was very powerful, it was valuable, and we needed to give them all that recognition. But to my colleagues that are nurses, May 6th through May 12th, 2023 is Nurses Week. I see a few of you guys in the audience, so I thank you guys for your work, partnering with us to get people back to work, to play, to live in. What you do is very important. I think I'm more passionate about nursing than ever, even after 27 years of being in nursing. The COVID, it gave me a newfound respect for nursing. Didn't matter what the person looked like, didn't matter their political beliefs, didn't matter what they believed about COVID. We had to be at the bedside to take care of those patients. And I commend all the nurses that did that, and as we continue to work to a healthier nation. I'm thinking about all the community members that I know are nurses. I have a lot of family members and nieces that's nurses, and I appreciate their work, and it's important, and I'm thankful for that. So I just wanted to tell all the nurses this week that Stephanie and the council would like to tell you Happy Nurses Week. We couldn't do this without you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Okay.
Well, I'd like to follow that recognition and really recognize all of our students. We have various graduations. I know there's TVCC graduations at the end of this week. We have students at Terrell ISD that are graduating in healthcare fields that the city of Terrell has supported TVCC and TISD in those certifications and scholarships. So kudos to them. We also have a 4-year degree, bachelor level degrees. I personally will be at a graduation. I hate that Steve Rogers is not in the room because my brother's earning his industrial distribution degree at, and we're heading down to Aggieland, Texas A&M, to see him cross the stage. So I'll have to maybe say that again, so next time I can actually get a whoop from somebody in the in the audience. But in addition, I hope that we continue the positivity and working together, and that everyone in this room and those in the organization can enjoy the upcoming celebrations that we have, and you may have with your families as well. And for all the teachers, this will also give all our teachers a break as school comes to an end later this month and early in June.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Anyone else?
Yes, I'd just like to make an announcement that Southwestern Christian College will be having their graduation of their seniors this Saturday. They have a class of about 24 people. Southwestern Christian College had a real tough time during COVID and had a lot of losses. And Dr. Irving Seamster, who is the college president, has done a wonderful job in decreasing the debt of Southwestern Christian College, getting it up to a SAC rating, which is the highest rating that a Southern school can achieve. So any child can leave Southwestern Christian College and attend any university. We had some to attend Princeton, some to attend Pepperdine University. It has great relationships with many universities throughout the country, so just want to make mention of Southwestern Christian College.
Thank you, Council. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. Our next item on the agenda is hear remark from visitors. This time is set aside on the agenda to invite any person to address the council on issues not subject to a public hearing. Routine administrative matters are best discussed with the appropriate city staff.
Mr. Mayor, I think we missed the mayor and council community recognition.
We just did. Oh, no. So the police is going to be next week. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Okay. So this is routine administrative matters are best discussed with the appropriate city staff before bringing them to the council. Prior to the meeting, you were asked to fill out a citizen participation form and present it to the city secretary. In accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.042, the city council cannot discuss, consider, or take action on matters not listed on the agenda. Speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes and are asked to speak into the microphone provided, identifying themselves for the record. The total amount of time set aside for this placed on the agenda is 15 minutes. Comments of a personal nature directed at the council or staff are inappropriate. This time we do have someone, Gail Surratt. If you'd come forward, please.
Gail Surratt, Terrell, Texas. Carmona, you did address what I was going to address at the beginning, is that the taping of last week, I couldn't hear you guys.
Okay.
So please be conscious. You don't tape it for the citizens, but the citizens want to see it, and that's why we're taking extra precaution to tape what you're doing. So if you want to be transparent, please do so. Second, because of what happened here earlier, I think it was awesome, but it brings it back to a point. Instead of focusing on intimate domain, land grabbing, annexation, whatever you want to call it, how about get us a hospital here, like now, not 5 years, 10 years from now? That call could have been 3 minutes instead of 8 minutes. They were lucky. We have heart attacks, we have gunshot wounds. I mean, we have all kinds of accidents. But we have to go to Rockwall, Forney, Kaufman. That's unrealistic, and it's shameful. Instead of spending $7.5 million to move that airplane thing, the British thing downtown, how about spend that money on a hospital, something that actually matters? That museum needs to stay out there with the British Airways that they built. I think your priorities are a little wrong and unjustified. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else? Is there anyone else that turned in? No, okay. Our next item on the agenda is adoption of the minutes. Item 6.1 is discuss and consider minutes from the regular city council meeting on May the 2nd of 2023. Council, is there a motion on 6.1?
Yes, Mayor, motion to move regular city council meeting May 2nd, 2023.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting on May the 2nd of 2023 as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 7.1. Mr. Shumpert, would you read that in the record, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Item 7.1, we will conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding a request for a specific use permit to allow the use of a smoke shop and CBD novelties storefront on a property currently zoned as light industrial LI. The property is located at 1880 Westmore Avenue, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, SUP 23-04.
All right, and this is going to be handled by Ms. Mata.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, we have a specific use permit for a smoke shop and CBD novelty storefront in a property currently zoned as light industrial. If you look at your packet on page 14, just to kind of orient you where we are talking about, this is 1880 Westmore Avenue, right there outlined in red. Moore Avenue is at the bottom of it, and then State Highway 205, Walmart is right behind her. So this is the shopping center that the T-Mobile, the Subway, the nail shop is in. So you may have a little bit of deja vu here, but this request has come to you before, same location. However, this time it is a different applicant. So same use, different applicant. So that's why it's coming to you again. So here at 1880 Westmore Avenue, for the smoke shop, for an SUP at this location, it does require, or for this use at this location that is zone light industrial, it does require an SUP. And by definition, you'll see the definition there as a smoke shop is defined in our zoning ordinance, that smoke shop or retail establishment in which tobacco or tobacco, electronic cigarettes, smoking devices, pipes, accessories, associated products, paraphernalia, liquid products containing nicotine flavors and or other substances intended for use in electronic cigarettes. Definition includes smoke shops, cigar stores, head shops, vapor shops, etc., which are restricted to persons 21 of age or older. In the next page, on page 15, you will also see your comprehensive map that designates this property as local commercial. And by this property, the current zoning is inconsistent with the existing use. So the zoning right now, as it stands today, is light industrial. Your future land use map calls for this area to be a retail local commercial. So that is why staff does not concur with this request. It went to Planning and Zoning Commission last month, and they did deny this request by a 6-0 vote.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
This is a public hearing, so we'll move into the public hearing, and then if you have any questions of Ms. Mata, we'll do that at a later time. So at this time, we will open the public hearing to receive comments regarding a request for a specific use permit to allow the use of a smoke shop and CBD novelty storefront on this piece of property. Is there anyone to speak on this item? No questions. Are you here to speak? You can come forward and speak.
Why was this specific location chosen twice now? What is the projected revenue and tax increases or tax profit that would come from this? And they're saying it's future zoned to be retail. So what is the 6-0 vote now? Like what decided that? How did you come to that conclusion?
Okay, so this is a public hearing to receive comments. So is there anyone else that would like to speak on this item? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing and move on to item 7.2. Mr. Shumpert?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight for discussion and consideration ordinance number 2979, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, granting a specific use permit under the provisions of Section 31B, Appendix 2, zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell to Terrell G&B Ventures, allowing an exception to the provisions of Section 30, Appendix 2, zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell for certain property located at 1880 Westmore Avenue, the same also being known as Lot 1, Block A, Terrell Original, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, by permitting a smoke shop and CBD location on said property currently zoned as Light Industrial LI, providing for a repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date, SUP 23-9404, and this does come to you tonight on first reading.
Okay. O'Meara? Do you have any new information that you would like to add?
Mayor and council, in your packets, you will see that the applicant did turn in on page 22 in your packet, sorry. There is a layout here of how he would have this area set up. And on page 23 through 27, you can kind of see this is what the applicant had turned in. This is something that he has in another store at another, in another town. And this is similar to what he would set this location up as if this SUP passes.
Okay, does any of the council have questions for Ms. Mata?
I do, Ms. Mata. Could you kind of just take us through the process when somebody's requesting SUP of how that happens and what the different steps would be?
Yes, ma'am. So in our zoning ordinance, we have uses, and then we have what location based on zoning where they can and can't go. If you think back on those charts that we presented to you, they normally have a P, and that would be as they're permitted in that area. There are some areas where we do have an S's, which would require that specific use permit. Case in instance could be just, for example, we just approved the last one being schools and hospitals. That was the last S that you saw come before you as a zoning. So in that zoning ordinance, there are, based on the use and based on the zoning, what we would require, and that is something that is council approved. So in those charts, that's what we go based off of. Seeing what use you want to use, and then where in the zoning that would allow you to do. There are some S's which does require an SUP, which would require planning and zoning, and then a city council approval.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mayor. Ms. Mata, this is a future retail site, correct?
The future land use map does call for this area to be a retail local commercial. Yes, sir.
So P&Z just pretty much voting on where we are now in terms of our comprehensive plan.
That is correct. And what we presented to them was what the future land use map calls for. Yes, sir.
And so if they were approved, they would have to have a SUP right now.
As it stands today, the zoning in this specific location is light industrial. So based on that zoning ordinance, based on the use is allowed in that area as long, with a specific use permit. So as long as they go through planning and zoning and city council to get that use approved, then they are able to go there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
So currently, this is it's allowable in light industrial. So with that being said, the planning and zoning denied it because of looking futuristic. We want something different. Our different zoning is going to be there, which is retail.
Correct. That is what the future land use map calls for, the local retail in that area. But as you said, today it stands as a light industrial. Yes, ma'am.
And is it correct that in order to overturn the planning and zoning, we would need a supermajority?
I believe that is
3/4.
correct.
3/4?
Three-fourths vote. Yes, sir, that is correct.
And people that visit the shop, they have to be 21? Is that true? What did I hear about the 21 in your presentation earlier?
That is for tobacco products, I believe.
And it will be tobacco products here.
That will be, yes, ma'am.
Do we govern that in any kind of way, or we just expect the business owners to do what the law says?
We go by the state law, but we also have it defined in our zoning ordinance as far as what zoning they can go into.
All right, thank you. Are there any other shops like this in Terrell?
Yes, but I don't know off the top of my head.
And in our future use plan, where would these places be allowed?
Per the zoning as it stands, they would be allowed in the light industrial zoning.
When we look at our future comprehensive plan,
Yes, ma'am.
where would this business be allowed anywhere? Or
In the light industrial zoning.
it still would be if it's light industrial in the future? So we go to a light
Correct.
industrial place, let's say if it's 20 years from now, and this would be permissible there or allowable?
Let me make sure I understand. So you're saying if we look at our future land use map, and that map calls for a light industrial area, and it is zoned, let's say, a different today, then it would go in line with the future land use map. Is that what you're asking?
I think he clarified. Let me say, 20 years from now, because we're looking futuristic, we want to make sure, as the zoning change, we put businesses in areas where they're supposed to be. So let's say 20 years from now, this shop wants to come in, they would still go in light industrial, but it won't be at this area. Light industrial will be somewhere else in the city, is that correct?
Well, yes, I
Sir,
think so,
This is
but,
council comments. This is
so our
the
future
council
land
comments
use
on-
map, that's something that we've approved. We base that off, there's areas designated in the city for light industrial. If they come forward today and they apply for something, we will reference that future land use map. Yes, ma'am. So that would be something that lines up with that.
And they would still have to do a SUP, right?
Correct. That is by the zoning ordinance. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Myra,
Yes, ma'am.
can you review if there were any specific requirements in the specific SUP? SUP would, for example, SUP is only allowed for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years if you meet X, Y, or Z. Can you remind me if there were any of those type of requirements in this SUP?
Not that we attached any conditions to this one. No, ma'am.
Was there any discussion about some of those requirements? Potential?
Not to my knowledge, but I could be wrong.
No, there wasn't. It wasn't discussed at the P and Z meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? So,
Well, I do want to notate, Mayor, that I'm only aware of one location that is similar to this, and it's District 3. It's on Eastmore Avenue, right next to the Lone Place, what used to be Hard Bodies, the title company as well. There's at least one location that offers some, I believe some or all of what is offered within this business.
okay. This is comments for the council. Does anybody have any more comments for staff?
Mayor, if I may just make one clarification, Councilwoman Thomas, just for your reference, I did put in the staff notes that this use is allowed by an SUP in heavy commercial and in light industrial per the zoning ordinance. So they could potentially do anything that's zoned heavy commercial or the light industrial.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you,
Yes, sir.
Ms. Mana. So this ordinance number 2979, is there a motion on it? It would be, if you wanted to follow the planning and zoning, it would be to deny the ordinance in accordance with the vote of the planning and zoning 6-0. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a motion on 7.2? So there's no motion? And if we take no action, here's the other thing, if we take no action, then it would just fail and the planning and zoning would rule, 6-0 be denied, so, yes.
Are we making a motion to approve or to not?
Well, if you wanted to follow the planning and zoning, it would be to deny. This one is,
Mayor, can I just help?
Yes.
Traditionally, you don't have to do it like this. Traditionally, if you choose that you'd like to support your Planning and Zoning Commission, then the form of the motion has tended to be that you move to accept the P and Z recommendation to deny. You're accepting a recommendation to deny. So if that's your will, then that would be the form of making that particular motion.
So if we don't accept the P and Z, what is our option at that?
If you think P and Z made the wrong decision, then what you would do is you would say, you would move to overrule the P and Z and approve the item, approve the zoning, approve the SUP, pardon me. You're either gonna make it to accept the recommendation of P and Z and deny, or you're going to move to overturn the recommendation of the P and Z and endorse the SUP. Just depending on which direction you want to go here.
To do that would require a 3/4 majority per the charter.
Right.
Well, I would like to say, I would like to move to disprove, or to overthrow the P and Z recommendation and say yes to the business.
so you
That's the
want to
motion.
approve ordinance number 2979 as presented.
No,
Yes.
That's the form of
That's
that,
what
yes,
you
sir.
want.
That's it.
So there's a motion, is there a second?
A second.
There's a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, District 4, to approve ordinance number 2979 as presented. Is there any further discussion?
I do have a
Yes.
discussion. So the formal motion was to approve
ordinance.
to approve the ordinance that was presented. And the ordinance that was presented is essentially saying that we're accepting P and Z's.
No, we're allowing for the smoke shop to be,
Overruling.
yes.
Okay,
Again, with requiring a 3/4 vote.
correct. Okay.
So I have a motion from Grady. Is there any further discussion? Is everybody clear? Yes? So I have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, District 4, to approve ordinance number 2979 as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 3/4.
Okay. Motion carries. The ordinance passes. Next item on the agenda is boards and commissions. Item 8.1, discuss and consider park board appointments, reappointments. The city secretary, Don Style.
Mayor and council, in your packet is the P and Z Commission roster. We have Jenny Heisel, Trini Jones, and Danny Stevens, who have all served 3 terms, and they are not eligible for reappointment. There's quite a few applications in the packet, and this falls under the oversight of Mayrani Velasquez.
Mayor, I'm going to
Councilwoman?
move to table this item. I was notified.
Postpone?
I move to postpone this item
Okay,
Till the next meeting.
until the next meeting.
all right, this is 8.1. There's a motion to postpone. Is there a second? We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Grady Simpson, District 2, to postpone item 8.1, the consideration of a park board appointments or reappointments. Is there any discussion?
I was notified earlier that we have additional applicants, so I will be reaching out to some additional applicants, and my goal is to have new members, new commissioners appointed to this board next week.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 8.2. Discuss and consider planning and zoning commission appointments. This is our city secretary, Don Stahl.
I'm sorry, I said P and Z before, and it was actually Park Board. So this one is the Planning and Zoning Commission. Jenny Heisel, Trini Jones, and Danny Stevens are all termed out. They're not eligible for reappointment, and there's quite a few applications in the packet, and this is under the oversight of Mayrani Velazquez.
Councilwoman? Busy night for you. What do you want to do?
I move to postpone the 8.2 item until the next meeting.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, a second from Andrea Reese, District 5, to postpone item 8.2, the consideration of Planning and Zoning Commission appointments until the next council meeting. Is there any further discussion?
Well, I've had an opportunity to speak to some of the applicants. I have been notified that there's additional applicants. So for this board commission as well, my goal is to have more commissioners appointed next week.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman. All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 8.3, discuss and consider zoning board of adjustments, appointments, and reappointments. This is Don Stahl.
Mayor and council, the zoning board of adjustments roster is in your packet. Jim Cooper and Karen Jones have both served 3 terms and are not eligible for reappointment. Dr. Kamika Miller, she does wish to be reappointed, and we also have Carolyn Fairley's position. She moved, and we need to fill that position as well. This falls under the oversight of Andrea Reese.
Councilwoman, do you have any recommendations?
Yes, sir. For the ZBA board, I would like to recommend reappointing Shamika and also to appoint Hayden Avery Shaw. And then I will continue to review the applicants for the remaining positions.
So you have two appointments.
Yes, sir.
Which position are you putting Shaw in?
For Jim Cooper.
Thank you.
Okay. Council, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Andrea Reese, District 5, and a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, to appoint 2 new zoning board of adjustment members. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item on the agenda is 9.1, discuss and consider the, all right?
That's correct. 9.1 is next. Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
9.1, discuss and consider the award of bid and 2023-2024 vet contract and animal shelter. This is going to be Arlie? And I see Mr. Duff back there too. He wants to come forward? Or are you just going to let him handle it? Okay.
They requested bids. We received 1. There was no competitive to that, so that is what is before you to make a vote on.
Yeah, and we were briefed on this, was it last week or the week
Yes, sir.
before? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's the
Does
second.
anybody have any new questions for Arlie? None? All right, is there a motion on 8.3?
9.1.
On 9.1, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve item 9.1.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Andrea Reese, District 5, a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3, to approve the award bid of the vet contract for the animal shelter to, who's Wills Point?
Point, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Wills Point. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries with unanimous vote of those present. Our next item are discussion items. Eric, would you read in the record 10.1, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight as a discussion item, ordinance number, I lost it here excuse me. Well,
2982.
2982. An ordinance of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, amending Chapter 1 general provisions, section 18, park regulations, by the addition of a new paragraph Q, drilling, mining, and/or reopening any abandoned well or mine prohibited, and paragraph R, penalty, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing a penalty, and providing an effective date, and this again is a discussion item only.
All right. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Caldwell.
Council, always a pleasure to come before you. This particular item is a cleanup item. Back in May of 2021, we were awarded a grant from the Texas Parks and Wildlife in contingency that in that application, there was a draft of this particular ordinance. So now we're bringing this for final approval. And this does not permit anyone to drill in any of our parks.
Okay.
Unless they're authorized through the city manager or his designee.
Yeah, and just for clarification, this is not intending that in the future such a thing would ever happen. This is a grant requirement to say that we specifically forbid it. So that was the purpose of bringing this forward, is grant compliance.
So again, council, this is just, well, really, Mr. Caldwell, it's just so that we can apply for grants in the future, right?
That's correct. It will allow us to.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Caldwell?
I do. What does that grant apply to?
It'll apply to all the Texas Parks and Wildlife grants, which will include urban and non-urban grant applications that we pursue.
So was that a 2021 grant that we actually received?
Yeah,
That's correct.
The first one that it applies to is the park out at Crossroads, where the development folks put up $750,000, and we're matching that with $750,000 from the state to develop the park sort of close to the pond and close to Film Alley. So that's what the project that brought it up. Obviously, we've got 2 or 3 different good grant applications in the queue that we'd like to do soon, and it'll apply to all those as well.
Will this come back to us next week?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, Councilwoman.
Anyone else? Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Next item on the agenda is 10.2. Mr. Shumpert?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight for discussion ordinance number 2980, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, establishing a scrap tire program, creating a licensing and permitting process, providing for the proper transportation, storage, and disposal of tires to minimize environmental impact, making certain findings and other matters related thereto. Again, this is a discussion item for this evening.
Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, we're going to go over to agenda item page 84, which is the start of a PowerPoint presentation that was made courtesy of the Regional Transportation Council. You will sense a theme in tonight's agenda from here on out, where we are working on grant eligibility. Of course, the folks over at the Regional Transportation Council have taken this wonderful photograph of a pile of scrap tires because one of the things that they're working on statewide is that there's something on the order of 50 million used tires in this state every year, and the disposal, the proper disposal of those used tires is quite a problem. So they're asking all of the local governments who might want to get a grant through the Regional Transportation Council in the future to sign on to this particular policy. So we're going to recommend it to you. It is based on some similar policies that are that are frequently found throughout the state of Texas. And then we'll invite Mr. Godwin up for the next round of 7 or 8 of these things. And they all have the same theme. Every single one of them are based on that RTC policy bundle that we went through at a previous meeting. What we're trying to do is to determine which of the policy bundle ideas meet the specifications of City Council, and let you guys adopt as many as you should choose. The more we adopt, the more money that we're eligible for under those grant programs. When we did this originally in the 2020-21 period, that's what earned us the money for the sidewalks from Bradshaw over to Ben-Gil Park, for some sidewalks on Virginia, and for, we hope, the next one that'll get approval there is the South Francis roadway project from Broad all the way down to Newton, which will completely rebuild with storm sewer and proper curb and gutter, all of that road from Broad to Newton. So great grant program, because that's a 100% federal funds program. That's how we're spending it from the last time around. And all the ones we're going to consider from here on throughout the remaining part of our meeting today are all tied up with grant funds where we would potentially have grant funding available in the $4 to $6 million range, probably somewhere in the 2025 period. So that's the intro part of this, and I'll go through the slides here real quick. Obviously, scrap tires can be very expensive and inconvenient for folks to dispose of property. Properly, we see that all the time. Small-scale shops often lack the resources necessary, so we want to find ways to help there. Enforcement and prosecution is really tough because people can come out and just dump a load of tires any old place, and it becomes something that we have to spend money cleaning up. Rural areas are really hit harder than urban areas because, frankly, people will drive from Dallas County to dump their tires in Kaufman County, and so it's a big issue here. The next slide, keep rolling through this. It's supposed to be that you have somebody generate a scrap tire. So obviously somebody bought a tire, the old tire comes off, the new tire goes on, and you think as the consumer, well, this is going to go great because I bought new tires and I drive away. But the question is, what does the guy who took your old tires do with the old tires? They're supposed to go to a transporter. Those transporters are regulated. Storage facility, or it could go to a scrap tire facility. Some of them are going to end up in landfill. Some of them are going to be in what you might call a beneficial use. The next slide kind of shows you how that breaks down. I'll go off of the 2021 year here. There's your 50 million tires per year. Green is recycling, the light blue is recycling, the orange can be things like getting it into different manufactured products, so that's always considered a good thing. Crumb rubber is used in different paving, in different paving applications. And then you see that landfill number, about 25%, and that's hovered between 20 to 30% over the years in Texas. And then tire-derived fuel is becoming a larger and larger segment, so we'll see how that goes. So obviously, you want to get as many of these out of just illegal dumping as you possibly can. The next slide is scrap tire sites. You can see there are a couple right around the Kaufman area here, a couple in Dallas. There's a very famously large one out in West Texas. And so we just want to keep ourselves out of that sort of trouble. I'm not quite sure that they can pin this number as exact as 12,185,301, but that is the number they think they know down at TCEQ about the number of illegally dumped tires that are just sitting out in the state of Texas to be dealt with. The next PowerPoint slide shows you they are putting some money into it, so they've got some funding for air quality programs, and they've pulled off $490,000 for this regional tire program. And the next PowerPoint slide is their task force. Their task force has been meeting and recommending the policies and sort of developed the template policy that we have in the packet for you. The next PowerPoint slide gives you a quick overview about the sorts of things that are in there. I'm not going to read through the entire ordinance tonight, but when you go through it, you'll see there's some definitions in there. It applies a tire business license and requires them to get a permit. Basically, the big part for us would be going to each of the folks in the city of Terrell who generate scrap tires and really just making sure that they have their TCQ paperwork in process. That's really the city role in this. We're saying, hey, you know, as a good business that is doing their business correctly with TCEQ, that you are supposed to do these things, but you don't hardly ever see TCEQ come out and inspect you or take a look at your operation. We'll at least come to take a look at you every year and see, are you really in place? Are you really doing the right thing? Is your TCEQ license still in place, or was it revoked? We need to know those things, and that's basically what the ordinance is about. It helps you identify tires because there's a way of tracking that to know that they've got a certain serial number on them. That way, if you do find a load of them by the side of the road, you can go track that back. Because after all, maybe you've got a good retail business in town who got lied to by a hauler. and they find those tires out in Van Zandt County, and we need to know that that hauler was maybe the person doing the wrong thing. So that helps us gather that information, and it creates a database so that we can share that with other cities that are also working on this same topic. So that's a quick overview of the ordinance. I did mine in PowerPoint form because I'm kind of cheating off the Regional Transportation Council there. But I'd be happy to answer any questions about the policy or about Ordinance 2980, and just looking for feedback if you'd like to see this item come back to you at your next meeting.
So Mike, if you would just briefly, for those who aren't aware of what RTC is and how they operate and what they mean, it's not just a program for the city of Terrell or Kaufman County, it's a regional.
Yes, sir. So the Regional Transportation Council is roughly 12 counties in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and it is all of the gas tax dollars, federal and state, have to go through the Regional Transportation Council, which is a coalition of about 40 or so local governments, counties. They all get together, they vote on how to expend those funds. And so literally billions of dollars a year of decision-making goes through the Regional Transportation Council. They have to approve a 30-year plan, they have to approve a 10-year plan, they have to approve annual spending amounts. The Texas Department of Transportation can't actually spend money until it goes through COG to get approved. So there's a lot of power and important decisions that go on over at the Regional Transportation Council, and this is just one part of their many programs. So again, in order to qualify for grants that we could use to build roads, we end up looking at a lot of different policies that they're working on because they're trying to be good stewards of those state and federal gas tax dollars.
So the money that is available to many municipalities, and what they do is they rank us depending on a scoring. So this one, I think, is a maximum of 3 points.
Yes.
On that scoring. I don't know why we wouldn't want to qualify or do everything we can that would qualify us for monies that are available through the federal government or through the state. Those are gas tax dollars that are spent locally that we should be asking for that money to return back to our community in some type of investment. So does anybody have any comments or questions?
I have a quick question. Will the ordinance cause any kind of additional financial burden on our little small tire businesses here in town?
We've kicked around different dollar amounts to try to make it one of our fairly low ordinance levels, and so I think we're kicking around somewhere between a $50 and $100 annual fee. We do have to create paperwork. We have to send staff out to do work, so we're not trying to create a punitive number there. I know some cities have been in the thousands to issue these permits, and I just don't think that's a number we're looking at all. We're looking in the $50 to $100 annual range as a cost for our businesses. The actual stuff they do on site, they should all be obeying TCEQ anyway. And so none of the businesses should have added procedural costs. They should just have registration with us so that we can spend some time overlooking what they're supposed to be doing with TCEQ anyway.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, there's a number of questions that I have, but since this is an item of discussion, I'll probably just vent it later. But I guess when I look at the process, I mean, this is like a great program. When I look at the process and what they take the tires to, my challenge is on the last part about the recycling. I wonder what type of the recycling process, what effect would that have on our environment here in Terrell? And where could a recycling center be located? They're taking the tires out of Terrell and going somewhere else, and that's where my skepticism lies.
I can track down between now and the next meeting some of the nearby tire recycling locations and just get you a list of where they are nearby. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
When will this ordinance come back to us, Mike?
Well, we would plan to try to bring it back next week if that's the council's pleasure, so you can go ahead and get these in place.
Does anybody have any opposition to looking at this ordinance next week?
No, I just want to clarify that, would like staff to clarify that we're looking at a $50 to $100 fee for the permit application for this, and all of the items that we would require for the permit are listed in Section 2. I see items 1 through 7. And that last item, of course, includes the proof that they are approved to function as that type of business through the TCEQ, or Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, as well. And essentially, after gathering that information, the business paying the fee, then our staff would go out to the business annually to
Yes.
ensure that they still have their TCQ license on file, and they're following what this ordinance, the directions of this ordinance.
Yes, ma'am. And then, of course, if there were to be a complaint that came up, or if a tire was tracked back to one of our facilities, we would be the on-site people to do follow-up on complaint-type issues.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, thank you, Mike. Next item on the agenda, Greg, would you read it into the record?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight for discussion only ordinance number 2981, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, implementing a plan to actively manage the city's multi-model transportation assets, establish means by which to monitor and methodically fund these vital assets, enhance transportation safety, and ensure efficient connectivity.
This is going to be handled by John Godwin.
Thank you, Mayor Council. This is one that does not directly affect businesses. This is a matter of kind of doing the sort of things you ought to do and making a policy. In this case, the RTCs wants us to adopt it by ordinance rather than by policy. And it goes to road maintenance. Road maintenance is one of those huge expenses. Transportation in a lot of cities is your number one expense. If it's not number one, it's number two behind public safety, depending on the city. I don't know what it is, Terrell, but it's a huge expense. And so usually you don't concentrate on maintenance. Just like you don't sometimes at your house or your car. Cities are really notorious about that, because when it comes time to get your budget really cut down and get it balanced, and you guys have that coming up soon, and I'm glad I don't do that anymore. Sometimes that road maintenance goes away, and Glenn's out there having to do what he can, and every little bit helps, but this tries to make it more methodical. And so Terrell's already doing a number of really good things in this regard. One of those, and that'll be continued, is that they have a systemic system, redundant there, that surveys all of the infrastructure, the roadways. This also includes sidewalks, drainage, all the infrastructure related to roads. It's really easy to just let those things go. It's really easy to underfund them. And it's not just maintenance. So we're talking about here not just filling potholes or every now and then overlaying a street or chip and seal or mill and overlay or whatever you do here. It's more than that, because if you don't build a single new street in your town any one year, you still have a transportation cost because you have depreciation always. And virtually no city in America funds that depreciation. And it's not something you can do overnight. But this is a really good policy, really good step forward, and that's why RTC is pushing it, and why I would certainly recommend it, that you pursue this so that you do those things. So you have the automated evaluation. It encourages you to fund the roads, the bridges, the sidewalks, the drainage. Also in here, because it's part of roads that's very important, is ADA, the American with Disabilities Act, which was approved a long time ago. Cities are required to have a remediation plan. That's a cost too. It's one of those things it's hard to spend the money to do that, but you need to do that. So this encourages you to start doing that process now. That can take 20 years to finish. You don't have to spend a bunch of money on any of this, but it's just the things that you're already spending money on, but it just tries to put it at the forefront there, so that when Glenn asks for money, he's got a little extra ammunition for you to say yes. Again, budgeting's hard. It means you got to say no to something else, but most cities get in the hole on roads. Most cities will have $100 million worth of stuff they need to do on roads, and they got $1 million to do it. And every year you just get further and further in the hole. And so it's a real challenge for cities and for states to do the same thing. So that's what this policy is about. And happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, let me just tag on there. We had a question last time around when we were doing the RTC policy bundle about, I think it might have been Councilwoman Velasquez, about, well, how is staff picking these to make recommendations? Well, this matches the category I mentioned, that we looked at this one and said, well, gosh, we're already doing this, but it's not in an ordinance. So why not bring it forward, because it's our common practice to do all of the things that are in here. We really adopted most of this stuff as business practice in about 2018. And so kudos to council in 2018, 19, 20, 21 for keeping this process in place. And so we felt like this was a pretty straightforward one for us to adopt because it's the business practice we have now.
And that, for what it's worth, not my place to say, but that's unusual for cities, so you're ahead of the game for what it's worth.
And, Council, we made tremendous improvements on how we handle and maintain the roadways throughout the city. I think this is a good thing to have it in ordinance form. Again, as RTC looks at municipalities throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex on funding that's available from the state and the federal level, this is just another notch in the belt for the city to go after those funds that are available for.
Straightforward one for us to adopt
Anyone
because
else?
it's the business practice we have now.
And that, for what it's worth, not my place to say, but that's unusual for cities, so you're ahead of the game.
We got good. Are we okay? Yeah.
Yes, yes, Mr. John. So, speaking of our plan that we already have for our roads, so what we're saying, when we put this in ordinance form, it would just legitimize our plan that we have in place.
It does.
Make it more valid.
It gives it more gives it more validity. It also makes sure, more sure that future councils, because you guys won't be around forever, they continue to do the same thing. It also kind of expands it. You know, it talks about the ADA stuff, talks about drainage, it talks about sidewalks, so it expands it as well. So
so it also posture us for grants.
Absolutely. And again, like the mayor and the city manager said earlier, we're specifically after between $500,000 and $1 million from RTC, and these are points.
Well, that's great.
These are all good ideas, but they're also points to get money.
Yes. Well, that's great, because I think cities typically fund this transportation asset management program under, is that the general fund that usually go to fund that?
Yeah, that's the best way to do it if you can, because otherwise you've got one-time income for recurring expenses. You always want recurring expenses in your operating budget if you can, unless you've got a special set aside for road maintenance. Some cities can afford that, some don't.
Yeah, and so, again, just for kind of clarity, what are we doing right now? Right now, each year, we take a calculated percentage of our sales tax, 1/8 cent, and that's the same that goes to the Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation. And back in 2018, we just started making the transition to be able to pull that amount of money each year and put it into the capital improvement fund. And that helps us get our streets done in a methodical manner. And then we also fund, not just in the capital improvement fund, those street improvements, but we also have our streets department in the general fund that also provides funding and support for our roadway improvements. So we feel we're making a good effort at this right now because we do have a formula approach to it.
If I may too say, when I'm talking about recurring expenses, I'm not contradicting, or he's not contradicting what I'm saying. That's a revenue source that comes in every year. That's not like selling bonds. Those kind of capital costs you don't want to use on fixing potholes or repaving streets. So that's anyway, what we're saying is consistent in case you thought we were saying something different. So, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else?
Quickly, I'm going to quickly go down through the list. So this specific ordinance, 1 through 6 items in section 3, continue to conduct an annual automated evaluation system on at least a biannual basis, which we actually do that yearly. As of a couple years ago, to assess the pavement quality and defects so as to prioritize preventative maintenance to reduce future capital cost. Number 2, fund and implement the existing plan by which the city develops an annual street and roadway maintenance plan based on actual technical data. We're already doing that. We saw that a couple months ago, and we have some pending contract to award. 3, inspect and evaluate city bridges and major culverts at least biannually and prepare a report thereon to be provided to the city manager. This is one item that I do have a question on. We would then would we as the city then include bridges into the annual contract, or are we already including and just not?
So, we don't really spend a ton of time on this necessarily, but so, for example, we have a bridge, a Griffith Bridge over Bachelor Creek. We have a Colquitt Bridge over Bachelor Creek. So I'm just picking two examples there. And so we do send inspectors down, take a look at them on a regular basis. And if we get a report back that says, hey, you've got some riprap you need to adjust there, you need to pull, you need to, remove vegetation at this location, you've got logs, doing something they shouldn't do, whatever it might be, we'll just go out there and get that done. And we haven't really ever shown much of a light on that, but that's just typical, annual maintenance for us. And a regular part of doing what we do as a city.
So what I'm hearing, Mike, is that we are currently sending out inspectors for number 3 in section 3, and then would that also be true for number 4, or would this be an added evaluation to evaluate the significant drainage ways and drainage infrastructure, at least biannually? Would that just be an inspector? Because I know we had a whole drainage plan.
Yeah, I want to, I'll give you the small version and the large version, okay? So the small version is staff has what you might think of as sort of a hot list of locations where we know that we have drainage inlets that get covered with brush, lawn clippings, leaves, all that sort of thing. So you could go to Glenn Caldwell and say, hey, what are the places that we try to drive before we know a big rain's coming, just to go make sure that we don't have an important drainage inlet covered? And we have a list like that. So that's one kind of inspection, right? That's just staff going and saying, is it clogged, is it open, and that sort of thing. And so that's the small scale version of it. The bigger scale version of it would be to say, for example, we recently spent some of our stormwater fee money, so the stormwater dollar amount that's on everybody's water bill. We recently spent some of that money behind, I guess I can call it Lakes MHMR. And so that's a drainage channel that used to be uncovered and just dirt. And it runs from roughly State Highway 34 over to roughly Airport Road behind Lakes. Well, that's a series of culverts, right? So we've got to either TV that, which is what our practice would be, or have somebody that one's actually big enough to do a walkthrough, and there are firms that do that. So you could actually go under there and walk it and TV it and make sure that you see what's going on underneath it there. We did a video inspection a couple of years ago of the Alamo drainage that runs basically from North Rockwall going all the way over past Langwith Elementary School, and then continues on over to Virginia. So you TV it and you start seeing, hey, there's nothing but a bunch of, debris down there. There's a bunch of twigs, there's a, whatever it might be that you find in a drainage channel like that. And it's not a matter that there's something wrong with the concrete. It's a matter that it's all plugged up with debris. And then you've got to get all of that debris out of there on a regular basis. And so, yeah, we absolutely do that. Is it as methodical as doing every single one of them, at least biannually? I'd say we've, this will help us tighten that.
Thank you. For 6 and 7, because it does call for a sidewalk survey and a long-term plan to ensure work in compliance with ADA for streets, sidewalks, et cetera. The way that this ordinance is written, or the direction from RTC, do we at this time expect to have staff do the inspections and planning, or
so this
we
is
would hire a consultant?
So we're actually trying to work with our, we've had a series of these guys that do the scanning of roadway systems, and so we started with robotics, and we've looked at others. We believe that there's a vendor out there that we're going to be able to use for our next evaluation of city streets that will actually include the sidewalks in their video review. And so right now, they're driving, they're identifying how many cracks, how many splings, how many holes, how many everything. They're geolocating every single one of them as they drive along, right? Just like a Google truck takes a picture of everything as it drives along. So it does this analysis, it takes it through an algorithm, and it gives them a ranking of, green, yellow, orange, red, so on down the line, right? So, is it good and it's in great shape, or is it just terrible? So there are firms that apply that same technology to the drive, and they will actually look at the curbs, they'll look at the sidewalks, and you get a scoring system for that as well. And so we think we'd like to change vendors on that, and that's what will allow us to move forward on those next couple of sidewalk steps.
Thank you.
So I noticed that you said that, like in this discussion, it was mentioned that we are already doing most of the things that are in here. So just kind of hit the highlights of what are some of the things that we're not doing that we would have to add in.
I think that's probably a city.
Let me try to take that one, and I would kind of go through it here and say, I think Councilman Velazquez kind of helped me highlight some of those. This is going to increase our reviews of bridges and culverts. It's going to increase our reviews of drainage ways and drainage infrastructure, and it's going to give us our first baseline for all of our sidewalk survey, because we don't have that baseline sidewalk survey yet. So those are the new things, but we're confident that those are all within our grasp to do those things, because those are things that we kind of had on the horizon of, gosh, now that we're surveying the roads every year, let's start doing the sidewalks. So we think this just goes right along with what we can do in the budget.
So are some of the grants that are available funds that can be used toward improving our roadways and sidewalks?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, there's another one of these that I'm working with the school district on where, these type of things are the direct eligibility for, sometimes it's points to earn. Have I got enough points to earn a free $5 million, $1 million, whatever dollars from the Regional Transportation Council with no local match? But there are also grant programs out there, and the Safe Routes to School one is a good example of this, where they used to just say, hey, show us that you need a sidewalk from a neighborhood to a school. Great, you show it to them, and we've done this 2 different occasions in the city of Terrell. We did a great set of sidewalks along South Rockwall. We did a set of sidewalks on Town North. We filled in some more, Walnut, and then we added more sidewalks with another grant on South Rockwall. And in those grant applications, we just needed to say we needed the grant and explain why we needed it more than the other city. The way that they're moving at the Regional Transportation Council is to say, well, that's nice, but you don't even get to apply if you don't have a couple of these policies in place. And so what we're trying to do is just sort of get ready for that to make sure that the grant door doesn't get shut on us and we get some of these policies in place.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Godwin. Next, and will we see this one as well next Tuesday? Most all of these that we're moving forward through. Item 10.4, Greg, would you read in the record?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight for discussion Resolution 2068, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, adopting a policy to encourage equitable transportation decision-making and taking proactive measures to avoid creating disproportionate benefits or damages.
This is going to be, again, John Godwin.
Just to clarify up front, equity is a term you hear a lot. So we're talking about just transportation equity. This isn't a social science thing or anything else. This is transportation equity or inequity. And inequity has historically happened for a lot of different groups. For a lot of different groups. And so typically it's inadvertent. Sometimes it's accidental. Sometimes it's unintended completely, but it's real. It does happen. It is real. Maybe Terrell's an exception. I don't live here, so I don't know the city well, but I doubt that it's that big of an exception. And so what this does is try to call attention to that, not make any specific decisions, but include that as a factor in your decision making, so that when you're and the specific quote here is that avoid, mitigate, or minimize negative impacts, and similarly make sure you're equal with the benefits of transportation dollars and transportation improvements and transportation maintenance. That includes the location and interest of environmental justice groups. That's something you should consider when you're figuring out we're going to build this or we're going to fix this or do that. It's not just the nuts and bolts. It's not just the dollars, but it's also people. The reason you have a transportation system is to serve your people, all of your people. So it doesn't mean if you're poor, if you're a minority, you get your street built first, but it means you don't get it last either. It's a factor. It's one of factors. And historically, it hasn't always been a factor that's been considered. In fact, if it has been, it's usually been in a negative way in the United States. Non-discrimination in budgets, again, not saying that there is or is not in Terrell. Hopefully there's not any, but you think about it. And it's good to think about those things when you make those kinds of decisions. Don't ignore the poorer, older neighborhoods. And when you do maintenance, that's a really easy thing to do. I was a city manager for a long time, and you catch yourself doing that back. It's like, oh, well, we don't need to worry about those people because, it's a beat-up old street anyway with a bunch of beat-up old houses. Well, they're still real people, and so their street matters to them, whether it does to me or not. So you have to think about those things. Complete streets, you already have a complete streets policy. Complete streets, we often think of complete streets means it's got sidewalks and drainage and paving. That's true, but it also means it's got connectivity, it's got access for people to use those streets for pedestrians, for people in wheelchairs, for people of all different types. It also means connecting neighborhoods to one another so that you can get to downtown or you can get to the hospital, you can get to different places. So those things are really important. And then finally, safe routes for pedestrians, especially safe routes, but especially for pedestrians too, because a lot of times you get new neighborhoods, new subdivisions come in, you require them to build sidewalks. I worked in Paris for a time, very high poverty right there. All the new neighborhoods had brand new shiny sidewalks. They were the only ones in the whole city because in the old days they didn't put in sidewalks. And it's hard to go back and put sidewalks in. So you just have to be careful of those kinds of things. And that's what this policy does. And it's just a policy, not an ordinance. It's just trying to make sure that the council, the staff, whoever's making those decisions, consider those decisions as one of many factors when you make those decisions. So that's all I got. Any questions on that one?
I think that's a good one. Does anybody have any questions on this one?
One question.
Yes, ma'am.
The Regional Transportation Council, I see that this is a policy. Was there an example of an ordinance to accompany the policy?
No, this was one they just suggested be done by policy. The ones that we brought to you as ordinances, they recommended as ordinances, and the ones by policies they recommended or asked to be done by policy. So we followed their lead on that.
So this would be a resolution rather than an ordinance?
Correct. These would be policies adopted by resolution. All the rest of these are going to be policies adopted by resolution.
Cool. Is there any reason why it would not be an ordinance? Sorry, is there any reason why it wouldn't be an ordinance?
Not that, I mean, you certainly could if you wanted to, if you felt like it was that important or whatever.
I was thinking, why wouldn't it couldn't be something that you can legislate, have a,
Yeah, I mean, you could, and that's a philosophical, governmental sort of thing.
The request was it to be a policy. and
Yeah,
that's
the
why we
request
went
was the
that
policy to get the points, and that's what I'm here for, is to get you some free money. If you want to go above and beyond, that's up to you guys to have that conversation.
I would provide you the thought this way. Typically, the dividing line between an ordinance and a policy has to do with what element of it are we doing in an enforcement point of view. So when we talk about, hey, the staff is being told, do exactly this thing, analyze that drainage facility every 2 years, that's really easy for me to put in ordinance form because I know, okay, do exactly that. This is more policy because it's think about these things when you're doing those things. Now, from my point of view, it's okay to upgrade a policy to an ordinance. There's nothing wrong with that. So, staff's not going to say no to that or anything. But that is typically the dividing line that you would see. There's not a single thing that you'd say, well, and I'll turn you over here to, like, for example, go to page 102, if you would, please. So take a look at that number 9 there. So this is the 9th one. So Terrell was going to adhere to the following. The provisions of this resolution shall be considered applicable in the planning and arranging of land use and in zoning considerations. Well, gosh, what does that mean, right? That means that if we're thinking about how to build out an area that's just vacant land right now, and a developer comes forward and says, hey, we want to put X, Y, Z here, then it should cue us off mentally to think, okay, are we being fair to different people at different income levels who might live in that neighborhood? Is it a development that might be close to an employment destination and the developer proposed not to build sidewalks? Well, okay, we better think, right? Staff better do some thinking and ask ourselves whether or not we're going to make sure that they also get those off-site sidewalks built so that people who live in that neighborhood have a chance to walk to school or walk to a work destination. So I think it's a really good policy, whether you upgrade it to ordinance or whether you keep it at policy. I think that's just council discretion, but it came as policy because it's a directive to think about something.
Okay, that makes sense. I just want to make sure future councils, this is something that will be at a strong forefront understanding of how you have to execute governance and equality in our city.
Yes, sir.
And to me, ordinance seemed like it probably make it more of a solid.
If it's council's desire for us to bring, if it's council's desire for us to bring it back as an ordinance, we'd be happy to do that.
Thank you.
I would definitely support that.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay, you got direction. Okay, cool. Next item on the agenda is 10.5. If you would, please read into the record.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight for discussion Resolution 2070, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, adopting a policy to promote a more efficient local transportation system by emphasizing street connectivity in suburban development, thereby encouraging shorter trip lengths and fewer motorized vehicle trips, facilitating pedestrian and bicycle travel, and planning for more efficient use of land.
Mr. Godwin.
Thank you again. This one's a little more maybe difficult to understand, but I'm going to try. So street connectivity, and you have to kind of think differently. And again, I don't know the street patterns here. When I'm here, I'm on the main roads, either going to work or going to eat lunch. So I don't know that many roads. But back World War II or so, they started building these streets like the longer the street, the better. The fewer intersections, the better. They put in all these cul-de-sacs, which seemed like a really cool idea because if you live at the end of the cul-de-sac, you don't get as much traffic. And all of that stuff is true. The problem is, as generations went by, it broke up neighborhoods. And I'll give an example that you can't see, but at my house, I have another house immediately behind me across an alley. I could throw a snake in their yard, which I did before they lived there. That's how close they are, yet I've got to go about a half a mile to get to their front door. That's how neighborhoods are usually built these days. So what this encourages, and it's kind of the new way of thinking about neighborhoods, is you want to have more intersections, not fewer. Because if you do that, like my daughters are all grown, but if they still live there and they wanted to go to that neighbor's house, they'd either have to jump the fence with a snake or they'd have to walk half a mile to go see their friend. Mm-hmm. And that's what you could do. You could walk to your friend's house. You could walk to school. You could walk to the doctor sometimes. You could walk to work more and more. And so we made it to where cars could go, and those really straight streets, even if they've got curves in them, like planners like to put them in there, which makes sense, they go really fast. Those intersections, if they're done well, are not as dangerous as we thought. And so this tries to encourage street connectivity. You have more compact, smaller blocks. You don't have such long streets without any intersections. You don't put cul-de-sacs everywhere. And that may be hard, but that's hard for me to get my head around because I've been telling people to put cul-de-sacs in forever. And I lived on one and it was great because I didn't have any through traffic, But overall, for the whole system, it might be good for those 3 people that live over there. But for overall, it's not the best thing for the system because it ruins neighborhoods, it ruins connectivity, and it reduces people riding their bikes and walking to walking places. It's because it's like, if I got to go way around here to get to school, you're not going to walk to school no matter how much people encourage you or have parades or anything else. So you have that higher street connectivity, more intersections per mile. That creates shorter trips too. So if you want to go to, not your friend's house, but you want to go to the 7-Eleven, you can maybe go and get there in 30 seconds instead of 5 minutes. So it's all about encouraging people to walk and encouraging people to take shorter trips rather than have to go a long way around the moon to get to where they're going. That's the East Texas expression, way around the moon. Y'all may use it around here too. That's all I got. It's a fairly simple thing. It's just changing the way we think about street design.
And it has a safety component to it too.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Where it reduces fatalities.
Yeah. And what we thought was safer, turns out it's really not.
Yeah.
It encourages people to do dangerous things. Because when you do have intersections, they tend to be great big intersections. 4 lanes, 6 lanes, people trying to get across the street before it's too late.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else?
Yes, Mayor. This is one of the things that I thought about when I first came on the council. And one thing I like the council to keep in mind is that how we can use roads and intersections, not just connect our neighborhoods, but how to connect the whole city.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been to cities where, no matter what district you was in, you can take a bike ride to all the parks.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, right now, I think we've done a good job in connecting. I don't want to use the north and south side, but I want to use district, as the mayor and I talked about when he first came in office.
Right.
Is just to have a way of connecting all of our districts and neighborhoods.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
If we can just keep that in mind as a council and as our city staff, when we're trying to talk about connectivity and traffic flow and safety, I think that'll be a great way to have
Yeah.
a future vision about it.
And, you know, that, not to talk too much, but that kind of goes along with one of the other things here with the schools too. You connect neighborhoods to schools as well, and that's what I'll talk about that here in a little bit. We got one about schools as well. It's kind of some of the similar kinds of principles.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, John. Next item on the agenda, 10.6, Mr. Shumpert.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, bring to you tonight for our discussion resolution number 2072, resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, establishing a freight-oriented development policy to minimize the potential for negative effects of such developments and their operations on nearby residential areas, traffic congestion, parking, and air quality.
Okay, Mr. Godwin.
This is one that again, Terrell is partially doing. There's a couple of ordinances you have in place already, at least two that I know of. You have an idling ordinance that you passed, I think, 2 years ago, really trying to minimize truck queuing, stopping, standing, and parking, as well as queuing. If trucks are going to stop, they need to stop on the property, or they need to stop in a required parking space, not out in the street. That's dangerous. It creates a lot of air pollution. It stops traffic. It causes congestion for other people. And if you live next door to it, it can make your life miserable when there's a bunch of trucks out in front of your house waiting to get into wherever it is. This is a town, a city that has a lot of industrial, light industrial, warehouse properties. You probably have a whole lot more coming, so you want to make sure it's built correctly so you don't ruin neighborhoods, because neighborhoods are important in your community. They're important in any community. So this guy tries to do that, to eliminate queuing and on public streets. If you're going to have to line up trucks way early, and this goes to not just saying, oh, gee, we won't ever have more than 9 trucks, so this is how much space we need, because truck drivers often come from a long distance away. They get there 6 hours early, and then they say, well, I can't go. So there's got to be enough room. You've got to get those people off the streets, especially if it's in a neighborhood. You want to attenuate noise, light, and sound, so that if there is traffic, if there's a lot of truck traffic for your neighborhoods, for your residential properties, they can't see it, they can't hear it, they can't feel it. They can't hear it. So.
Hey, John, let me take a pause on that, and I want you to just, again, this is a policy. It's giving a thing for staff to keep in mind while we're working. So if we get a site plan for new industrial development, and there's going to be an abundance of 18-wheelers on it, one thing is to look at the site plan and say, well, the ordinance says you need 25 trees and so much screening, and the fence needs to be over there. You can review a site plan and say, does it meet the letter of the ordinance? Or you can review a site plan and say, does it meet the spirit of the policy? Because maybe they want to propose to you to put the trees and the screening and the fence where it's most cost effective for them. And we ought to be telling staff to tell the developer or the business to put the trees and the screening and that sort of thing where it's most beneficial for the neighborhood. And that's the philosophy we're trying to get to by listing that in number 2. So I just want to kind of underline that, because I think that's one of the most important elements of what we're going to talk about here.
And the last point I wanted to mention on this is the idea of, an example is a backage road. And in some cases, it's requiring a developer to put in a whole different road. And an example of this is the Hines development, North Spur. They wanted to more or less run their trucks through neighborhoods to get them out. And sometimes that'll happen even just accidentally. This is too slow, or this is a roundabout, so the truck will just cut through the neighborhood because time is literally money to them. And so in that, the city required them to build a backage road. So that when that light industrial warehouse properties over there on Highway 80 get built, they won't be going through that new neighborhood. They've got this specific road just for them to keep them out of the way. That protects your neighborhoods. It also encourages safety, because you don't want those trucks in residential traffic, and especially pedestrian traffic intermixing. So that's all of the ones I had on that. Any questions on that one?
To clarify, the way that this policy is written, when we think about policy and ordinance, Does it truly put some teeth into those plans that staff is reviewing to assure that, yes, they're following the screening recommendations that we have in place through an ordinance? That's where I want to assure, before we move on to the next item, that that's what this policy versus ordinance can ensure we have some.
Yeah, so the zoning ordinance right now is going to tell you how many trees to plant and what percentage of the site needs to remain grass, and where to put the screen, and what screening is the minimum requirement. This is more about, hey, when you're reviewing it, staff, follow this philosophy when you're reviewing it to be as beneficial as possible to any nearby neighborhood. And again, it's council's discretion. If you'd like us to upgrade this to an ordinance, just let us know, and we can certainly do that. Again, our thought was, this is what you're thinking about when you're doing something, so therefore we have presented it to you as policy, because that's the way the Regional Transportation Council provided to us, and that's the dividing line we would normally use. But by all means, if y'all want us to move it to ordinance phase instead, we can do that as well.
And again, just for what it's worth, to be clear, you do have 2 or I think 3 ordinances actually in place now, and then the next one would be the zoning ordinance, which you have, which has got the interpretation ability.
And I appreciate the reminder, Mike, about the zoning ordinance that we have in place that already have the teeth for this policy. So I don't need to move. My recommendation is to move it from a policy to the ordinance, because we already have those existing ordinances.
Keep it in resolution form. Right. Anyone else? No? All right. Next item on the agenda is 10.7.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight for discussion Resolution number 2073, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, creating a policy to guide the use of uncrewed aircraft systems, drones, to identify new uses, to promote efficiency, and at the same time ensure safety and coordination, and to cooperate with other jurisdictions and agencies.
Mr. Godwin.
Very quickly, this is basically 2 components. One is drones are out there whether we like them or not, and we've used them a little bit here. Y'all have used them here a little bit for inspections and some of those kinds of things. But the notion, number one, is see what the city can do to benefit it. Looking at quality of streets and sidewalks and drainage is one of those. Fire inspections, sometimes looking at people's roofs, those kinds of things. Pre-inspections for fire, so forth and so on. Those kinds of things, crime prevention, crime pursuit. Evaluate those things, and so that if we're going to have drones in the area, the city should benefit from those. Number 2 is the private sector is going to be doing some things very quickly. They haven't already started. They're going to be delivering packages, and the COG really thinks it's important, and I certainly agree, that the city should contact those people that are going to start delivering stuff in your neighborhood or in your streets or wherever, so that we're all on the same page. It's not a surprise to anybody, and so the idea is to be proactive with those folks, whoever they are. They just show up at my door magically. I don't know how they get there, other than my wife orders them every few minutes. But that's the 2 parts, just 2 parts to this one.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on this item? And again, these will come back to us next week.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? Next item? Go ahead.
How are we currently utilizing drones?
So we have, in the police department, we've got a good weather tactical drone that is a little bit more capable than our bad weather tactical drone. So you would imagine the differences there. And then we're starting to make some use of that. So for example, when we do a construction inspection, it's very handy to be able to raise a drone up and take a picture of construction at a certain point in time, say, okay, this is what that construction looked like today at 8 a.m., and then you can come back the next day and get a better view of the construction the next day, and you can find illegal work that way, and you can find people who have maybe not followed a construction process correctly that way. So just a handful of things like that. It's also a good little tool to just say, hey, I wonder if, 200 yards into that forest the city owns, whether or not we've got a problem in a sewer line. So you might be able to more quickly go take a look at something using a drone than just dispatching somebody to walk through the bottom lands to take a look at something, because we do have some remote land that we own.
And I also think that the fire department uses a drone whenever that they're able to fly over a fire and determine
absolutely
what the fire's doing. So.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Next item on the agenda is 10.8. Mr. Godwin? I'm sorry, Greg, would you read it in the record?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight for discussion resolution number 2074, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, adopting a policy to improve air quality, decrease the presence of illegally inspected and improperly registered motor vehicles operating on public roadways, and to cooperate with other jurisdictions.
Okay, Mr. Godwin.
Kaufman County is one of, and I started this off with this fact, Kaufman is one of 17 counties in the whole state of Texas that are non-detainment counties out of 254 counties. So it's a serious issue that's population-driven, and it's certainly motor vehicle-driven because of the NOx and the other pollutants that come from motor vehicles. Lots of other sources as well, but this is about transportation. So what we're after here is to try to address some of the major issues that happen. One of those that we try to, one of the ways that Texas and other states try to keep cars from being dirtier than they need to be is annual inspections. And in the last several years, people have become very clever at how they avoid those. Two ways is that they plug in a car that's running perfectly well and get a pass, and they get renewed that way, and that's called clean scanning or clean plugging. Another way they do that is, and this is, you see this in the news all the time, is the use of illegal temporary tags. And so this tries to address those kinds of things. It encourages the police department to go to these places that issue tags or that issue inspections, inspection stickers, registrations, and make sure that everything's good and everything's okay. Nothing confrontational. We're not asking for any more permits or anything like that. Nothing special. Those are already illegal under state law. But the state doesn't, kind of like Mr. Sims said earlier about another topic, the state doesn't have enough people to check on all these folks very often, and so it's always good to have a police officer go by and just, hey, how you doing? And if they're doing something wrong, they'll act really suspicious. I ran this by the police chief a month ago, and he didn't see anything wrong with it. His officers were certainly would be able to do that. It also, another step is the regional, can't read my writing, emission enforcement program, REAP. And so that's a regional program, and they keep a database of cars and trucks that have been violators and people that have been violators. And so we can get information from that, so we can join that and get information to help us to catch repeat offenders. There's also this is one of those things you don't ever want to encourage people to be snitches, but there's a program that exists. It's the smoking vehicle program, and you can anonymously call this vehicle and you say, I just saw Mike Sims driving by this old beat up truck and there's smoke just pouring out of it. And even if it's not doing it, you can call them and say that it is, but somebody will make sure that they'll follow up and make sure you're not just making stuff up about it, so don't really do that. But that's a program that we may or may not want to do. That's when we would just put education out there. We'd have Allison, put something on the website or whatever in case you would do it. That's not a program we would operate here in Terrell. You would operate here in Terrell. That's a COG program. RTC is part of the COG. And so that's something they have in existence. That's just for us to take advantage of that if we choose to do so.
Yep. All right.
All I got.
Anybody have any questions?
Tired of me yet?
Yes, go ahead.
Before we go to the next item, I just want to mention that, believe it or not, there are two more of these. And so the Safe Routes to School one that John was alluding to is under review by our school district, because that's something we do in partnership with them. When I get feedback on that, I'll bring that one forward. And there's an additional one that has to do with safety programs that are operated through our police department, and the police department's still reviewing that one. So when that's ready, we'll bring that forward also. But those are the last two that you'll see to complete this package.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. Thank you, Mr. Godwin. Next item on the agenda is 10.9, discuss upcoming city council meeting schedule. Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, this is a look ahead, and I'm anxious for feedback. So, the 16th is going to be an important date for election canvassing. 23rd and 30th are days that we think need to be dialed in to sort of get us caught back up on some of these. All of the RTC policies we just talked about need to be adopted prior to the end of May. So we're trying to hurry through that process. The next PowerPoint slide shows June. I have an odd feeling that we could strike a compromise here. I very much think that we will have a more relaxed and beneficial conversation on our strategic plan if, instead of trying to tackle it at night, we just pull off a Friday afternoon, or I'm sorry, an all-day Friday, a 8 to 5 on Friday, and I'm going to propose the 23rd for that, to do nothing but finishing our strategic plan. We got a great strategic plan presentation from our police chief. We had a great strategic plan presentation from our fire chief. They talked about all of their respective areas. So we're able to cover those areas, plus animal control, plus emergency management. But we got a lot of other departments that like to present their strategic plan elements to you. So I'll throw out the 23rd as the date for that. And then I would be looking for maybe some council input on if we were to skip one of the meetings in June. I'm still going to try to stay in June, if you would please. In June, yeah. So I think that we could probably shave off one of the meetings in June. So if you want to be thinking about that while I talk about July, you can kind of say, okay, well, wait a minute here. Let's skip such and such meeting in June. Better to plan it ahead of time, right? Then in July, that's the month we typically try to take at least some time off, and you can see there's no city council meeting on the 4th, obviously. We'll all be doing fireworks. There's also no meeting on the 11th. That allows us to do some planning work there. And then the next PowerPoint slide gets you to August. Very important for you to realize that we very much need you for our budget retreat on the 3rd and the 4th. And then you can see some of our other meetings in the month of August. In theory, if everybody loves the budget on the 3rd and the 4th, we might be able to cut one or two of the other meetings in August. But I like to kind of hold them and let you know, well, gosh, if we have a lot of work to do and we can't quite get to a resolution on what the council wants to do with the budget in that August 3rd and 4th time frame, then we may have to do all those meetings. It just depends on how much budget consensus we're able to achieve on the 3rd and the 4th. So that's my review of the schedule, and I guess I'll go back and leave it at June and see if there's any dates that might get proposed to cut off in June, or whether or not folks are comfortable with that 23rd strategic plan workshop.
So, council, we had talked about looking at cutting back some of our meeting times. What I'm looking at in June is if we were to cut the 13th, that would give our staff that week off for any meetings. So I would propose that one first, if that works for everybody. But if someone has a different date in mind, then we can consider that. But looks like the 13th, if we took that one off, there's not any other meetings for our staff, and they would have that week to take off. What's your input, thoughts on that? Mm-hmm. So,
I have a question.
no, this is this you can't comment. You can't comment. This is for the council only.
I just want to know where the meetings are.
Just they'll be posted, but this isn't an open meeting. So, council, does the 13th work for you, or do you want to do the 20th? I think there's a celebration. Yeah. And we could take the following day off. What are y'all thinking?
The 20th would be better for me. I do teach a summer class, so I think my final is on the 22nd. I should be able to make that strategic plan, but I got to look at my work schedule for that strategic plan workshop on the 23rd.
Could we move the 23rd to either the 16th or the 30th, or is that a hard?
If you just give me, I promise you guys, I can contact you guys tomorrow.
Okay.
If it's okay with everybody, I'm thinking my final is the day before.
Okay.
I'd rather move it from the 23rd also.
You would? Okay.
So there's a need to move the city council strategic plan workshop to another date, either the 16th or the 30th. I guess, Mike, you'll.
I'm just following y'all's lead on this one. My suggestion would be if you have a specific concern on the June calendar, shoot me or Dawn or Ty an email and say, hey, I'm thinking this and not that. And for all I know, everybody will say the same thing. So just shoot us feedback, and we'll go with it.
But for the council meeting, the 20th works for everybody for cancellation?
I like the 20th.
20th?
And then the 16th works better for me for that.
Okay.
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 Repeat that, Mayor.
I'm flexible on the,
So what we would do is we would not have a regular city council meeting on the 20th. We would move the city council strategic plan workshop from the 23rd up 1 week to the 16th, and a place and time to be determined, and that would be posted for everyone to see, right? Okay?
Yeah, we'll rework the calendars and make sure you see them again.
Yeah, see if we can make that happen. And then if there's another one where we don't have anything urgent, then we'll consider that as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And then we'll look at we'll look at July next month and see
Yeah.
if there's anything
I can
we do
assure
there.
you, staff is going to be wholeheartedly recommending the 4th and the 11th as days that we don't have city council.
Okay, yeah. Anything else on the calendar?
No.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is 11.1. This is to receive Star Transit ridership reports. I think those were in our packets. So if you would review those, and if you have any questions, please reach out to staff. Again, on 11.2, the same
Mayor,
thing.
I do have
Yes.
a quick question.
Okay.
I think staff can help get an answer. I'm trying to recall if there are, in the agreement that we have with Star Transit, if there are any, what do I call them, discounts for individuals that have a disability and are needing a ride, or somebody that's accompanying a minor or an adult that has a disability.
So I won't say this perfectly, but from memory, a rider who must have a caretaker, the caretaker's free. That's a standard policy they've had for a long time. And then there is a price differential between disabled and seniors and all other riders. And you know what, I'm just not going to try to quote that dollar amount off the top of my head, but there's a pretty steep discount for elderly disabled.
Thank you.
So again, item 11.2 is receive Terrell Fire Department April 2023 monthly report. That again is in your packet. So if you have any questions for the chief or for staff, reach out to them. This time we're going to adjourn into executive session in accordance with Section 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the following. Section 551.071, consultation with attorney. Section 551.072, deliberations regarding real property. Section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations. We are now in executive session. So we'll go back.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Get out.
DJ
hit that
All right.
thing. Yeah, he would. He'd want to get out.
We're going to reconvene into regular session and consider action, if any, on items discussed in executive session. Does anybody have any motions? Hearing none, we are adjourned.